All right then.
I wish we had one of those like movie things. Take two.
Start over, right?
Oh gosh, if you came to join us live on LinkedIn this morning, something went awry with the technology. So we're doing a recording, which we will post later. Welcoming you to Thursdays with Culture Talk. We are Cynthia Forstman, that's myself, and Teresa Agresta in the pink.
Yeah,
We are
nice to see you. Thanks for joining us.
we are co-founders of Culture Talk. So if you are new to the conversation and our community, what Culture Talk is a system that makes culture a tangible business asset. There are things we call Culture Talk profiles. And when you create a Culture Talk profile, that can become a red thread that ties together our own personal stories, our collective stories, and it helps us close the gap between individual potential, team performance, and organizational strategy. So, we're excited for the next 6 weeks. They're actually leading up to a certification class that we host in January 2022. And what we're going to do over the next 6 weeks is what we're calling a Culture Talk activation tour.
Woohoo! We're going on tour. Everyone else might be staying put.
Yeah, right. From our home offices. But what we want to share is how the system of Culture Talk can be activated across an entire organizational ecosystem and across a talent life cycle. So it may sound hard to believe that one system could have that broad of an impact, but the proof is really in the stories, the experiences, the transformations that our certified partner community is creating every day.
Yeah, I think last week we had a fantastic monthly call with our partner community where we really saw and felt the impact of that because we just kind of opened the floor and let people share their experiences and how the system has really moved the needle for their clients and really had a powerful impact. So that kind of feedback and input from the people out there kind of around the world. I mean, even here on the call, we're seeing friendly faces from India and from Bulgaria, from here in the US, where people are employing the system and really having that kind of bringing that feedback into the loop. So that's really exciting for us.
Yeah. So hold on to your hats, right? Our goal in the next 6 weeks is to let you experience the power of using a story based framework to simplify really complex initiatives and to create meaningful, lasting business results. We're going to cover a different topic each week. We will send out recordings. Hopefully next week will
Be live.
if you have people in your communities that you feel like this would be interesting for them, we'd love to have them join the conversation as well. We'd like to grow the work. And if you're having any light bulbs go off, about maybe how this system might be applied in your work or integrated with the work you're doing, Teresa's going to pop her calendar link here into the Zoom. You can schedule a call with her and to explore that. And we'd also be happy to offer you a free Culture Talk for Individuals assessment so you can feel it personally. So that's the background. On to today. Our focus today is really on learning and development. How can Culture Talk profiles be activated by learning and development teams?
Right. So when we think about, just sort of in a snapshot, what's happened in learning and development over the past year, we have, or 2 years, I should say, we have sort of like this perfect storm of things that have come together. First, we have clearly the pandemic and the changes that has just, rained down on organizations. And while all of us might be having the experience of needing to shift and work differently and collaborate differently and respond to unique and specific, challenges within different industries, healthcare obviously, but many different industries have had their unique challenges. The folks in L&D have not only had to make those shifts and changes within their own department, they've also been called upon to get everybody else up to speed, provide the support and the learning that people need when they're making transitions and changes, maybe identifying new people and to rise up into positions to support these initiatives. And then also riding side saddle with the HR department, the need to recruit and bring people, find people and bring people into the organization, all during the course of the Great Resignation, and all the challenges that people have had. So it's like a pressure cooker, and much of the, when C-suite needs the support to get the initiatives going, oftentimes they're going to turn and look at the folks in L&D and look for them to roll it out, to implement it, and to get everybody on board. So we know that the folks in L&D are working double time to make those things happen. And so it's really cool that Culture Talk offers almost like a dual opportunity. The ability to rethink your own department quickly, reposition, and Cynthia, you're going to tell us a little bit about that. And then, to take that and apply it to your population, the people that you're responsible for training and supporting and engaging.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about how the L&D team right now is in that unenviable position of being the shoemaker's kids, right? Because their own departments are having to respond to this pressure and this change and all of the things that the whole organization is responding to. And then at the same time, they have to come up with the strategies for overcoming, for connecting the dots, for learning and business strategy. So one way that Culture Talk profiles can be applied is they can actually be applied in a specific department or with a specific team to, as Teresa said, help them kind of reimagine, who are we, right?
What's our story?
Yeah, we mentioned that Culture Talk, we have assessment tools. And one of the assessment tools is designed to actually help people answer that question, who are we? And what that allows teams to do is to coalesce, right, around a shared storyline. And it allows them to build messages that are clear and compelling about what is the value that we bring, what are the strengths that we bring, how do we get the work done. And with that clear, consistent, like we're all in the same conversation, we have a language, we have a common language for thinking about who are we. That has the side effect of getting people on the team re-engaged. Oh, okay, I'm part of this. This is what we're all about and what we're doing.
Right.
And at the same time, it also, when a team starts to get really clear about who are we and what's our value, people outside the department begin to look at them differently and go, oh, what's happening over there in L&D? What is this story they're telling us? And how can we use that story to shift the perception of people, to strengthen the position of our own department? So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, we worked with Turner Entertainment. And if you can think about Turner Entertainment, cable television went through, an existential crisis a couple of years ago when all these streaming services, more than a couple of years ago, right? Streaming services like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon sort of started to create total competition in the marketplace.
Right. When it had been a static, I don't want to say static, but seriously, the model had been the same for so many years. And so the L&D department had been delivering the same. That the research department had been delivering the same for so many years.
Right. So in this case, it was the research department that was in the crucible. And suddenly everybody at Turner is looking to the research department and saying, we need something different. We need to know how to compete. We need different answers and different solutions and different research. And so the head of the research department was like, oh my gosh, how do I rally the team. How do I get people to stop thinking of us as order takers, right? As the department that says, I want to report on X, Y, Z, and how do we start becoming more strategic in serving the organization at this moment in time? And so we had an opportunity to work with that department really closely. We had an opportunity to take them through this assessment process of looking at their department through a storyline and through, that are uncovered in the cultural profiles. That gave that department lead and the team, the leadership team, the story about who are we and how do we need to change and evolve at this moment in order to serve the needs of the business.
Yeah.
And it got people engaged and excited to be part of the team and to be part of offering what the future was for that department.
I think that one of the really cool aspects of that was the team itself was able to measure where are we today and what behaviors, historically have we demonstrated and can we point to as evidence that show this is the story we've been living. But it also shines a real light on this is not working for the crisis we're in, for the changes we need to make. And they actually themselves said, this is what we need to create. This is the story we need to live. So therefore, this direct connection between what changes do we need to make became really clear to them. And it was, not someone from the outside telling them, you need to change in these ways. It was them recognizing and being able to make those connections themselves.
Yeah, being part of their own transformation.
Right.
And after a bit of time, other leaders in the organization started calling the head of the research department and saying, what are you doing over there? It seems like there's a whole new level of ownership and accountability. Your whole team has stepped up in a way. Keep it up. Whatever you're doing that's different, keep it up. So just an example of a department in a crisis responding and really being able to evolve and totally shift how people thought about their department. That's what we see in a lot of ways is going on in L&D today.
Yeah. And it's like a double opportunity because the L&D department is also then positioned to take these same ideas and tools and apply them to solve for the challenges. So the double opportunity with L&D is you can learn the system, sort of become the shoemaker's child and learn by applying it to your own department, but then take what you've learned and learn and apply it to others. So I referenced this the other day on a post. It's called the Protege Effect. So L&D will be able to learn much better the mechanisms to focus on culture and to make those changes because they're going to apply them to their own work and be able to support the transformation that their own employees within the organization are needing around all these different changes that we're facing. So it's a double opportunity. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to start this tour with the L&D department because of the trends that we're seeing there.
Yeah. So, and we do have people in our certified partner community that work in-house. There's a team at a large U.S. government agency. There's a team in a fast-growing data company that are actually taking both CultureTalk assessments and that who am I and who are we methodology to solve a number of different business challenges. Teresa, thinking about some of the examples we heard again on the partner call last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, if anybody, again, please feel free to join in the conversation. If you have questions or ideas about how this is coming together. Some of the ways that we see L&D folks deploying the tools once they learn the system is in areas like leadership development, really embedding the understanding as a first step how a leader is able to, articulate who am I, what is my story, what's my style of leadership, and then how can I tune in and learn and hear from my team what their experiences are, what their needs are. And that's changed. We talked, I think it was in maybe a year and a half ago, that we launched an opportunity called Flip the Switch, which is a program that allows leaders to hear the needs of their people very specifically, as they align with the changes we were undergoing, during the pandemic. So what are my strengths? And, how have those things been called into play in a stronger way? Because of the challenges that we're facing, maybe I can lean into and actually grow through some of these challenges. And what are the areas that I am stuck in, even stuck in a bigger way because of the shifts that we've all been living through? So that program, and many others like it, tapping into the idea of how do I, lead from a position of knowing my own story and how I show up, is one of the ways in which the L&D team can really capitalize on the work itself.
I'm answering some questions here in the chat, Teresa, so maybe you can share another example.
Sure. So I'm thinking about another company that is using the CultureTalk assessments for conflict resolution. So having access to some of the relationship pairs and tip sheets and some of those things that enable somebody to troubleshoot what's going wrong, or if they're smart, to look at those things in advance and be able to avoid bumping into challenges on team. So being able to take a look at, even as teams come together for collaboration, being able to look at in advance who are the people on the team, how can we put the people in the, with the right skill sets in the right seats, and how can we, when the inevitable challenges come up, how can we use the assistive, the tools to identify quickly what's going wrong, reduce finger pointing and blame, and enable people to find their way to stronger, solutions themselves, or sometimes with the support or the help of somebody outside the department. So when we look at integrating, especially through an L&D effort, we want people to, it's not just a once and done. It's not an assessment or an outcome that sits on a shelf. It's something that becomes a common language that gets integrated into the way that the team communicates, and then they can build on it from there. So in that way, we think about the individual assessment, for instance, in being very foundational. You start there by measuring who you are, how you show up, what your style is, where your strengths lie and the things that you struggle with. And then you can add on and build from there. Leadership development, programs are one thing. Pulling it into the performance review process is another way that you can build on the outcomes of an individual CultureTalk assessment. I'm thinking about DataBank, for instance, they're actually all over the US at this point. They've grown significantly. And we just trained several people in their HR and learning and development space to broaden the number of people certified in that company to 4, so that they've got it integrated into their brand and marketing. They've got it into their culture practice, really getting clear on what are the, expected leadership behaviors and the things that we're going to reward here. And then deepening that to bring it out to trainings. So one example is they brought it to their sales leads and used it as an opportunity to get those leads that are, driving sales for this really fast growing company to have more authentic connection with each other, and to learn how to, work past challenges. And we heard a story about somebody who was a little suspicious of all this talk about culture and kind of, hands folded, a little resistant to the conversation, who turned around and said, this was the best 2 hours that I've spent at this company, over the course of years, and, resolving very long held challenges in a relationship with his boss. So just by opening up the training and the thinking to different groups, it becomes a foundation that you can bolt on, other outcomes too, as well.
Another piece of feedback from that same event that Teresa referenced is, one of the people saying, hey, we used to be a team on paper, but now I feel like as a result of the experience of sharing our stories, that we're now a team on purpose, right? Like we understand how we relate to each other and how to, coalesce around that. I'm also thinking about another learning and development team that is integrating the storylines, which we call archetypes. So if you go to the Culture Talk website, you'll hear about archetypes a lot, but they're integrating people's personal archetypes in a way that they're under pressure right now to get a lot more creative in the organization. So there's a big focus on innovation. And so they're using the profiles to help individuals really step into what is my role in an innovation world. So they've got a whole workshop series they're rolling out around creativity and sort of, I don't want to say creating creativity, but like inspiring.
Leading creatively. That's the name, but yeah.
And how do we might have different styles that we show up. Everybody can be creative in their own version of that. What do they add to a team that is really been tasked with becoming more innovative and more creative? So just another example of, to Teresa's point, taking the same assessment tool and being able to apply the profiles to different ways of helping people see themselves, their roles, their growth opportunities, and, coalescing as team. So,
yeah. Yeah, and some questions that are coming in here, just, having a little chat with Tracy. And so, Tracy, feel free to unmute and, and ask your questions. Happy to, dive in a little bit about that.
Okay, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy, and I am certified in emotional intelligence. And it seems that there are a lot of parallels between Culture Talk and emotional intelligence, and that there's also a individual assessment. So that's what I was chatting about, that there are two assessments, one for individuals. Mm-hmm. So when you have the assessment for individuals, what type of data do they receive? Does that individual receive?
Yeah, good question. So they receive their scores across all 12 of the archetype patterns.
Okay.
And what we're looking for and what we want to understand is, what are the scores that rise to the top? Because we know that individuals have, like, I call it like, so your bag of tricks. And, you might think about it as, we also use the term the power team. So these are the go-to ways and styles in which we show up when, we're not thinking about it. We're not contrived. It's easy, it's natural, and it's sort of, it serves us because we are comfortable and familiar with them. So the individual gets their scores, and then through the validation process, consultants are engaged to help them validate the scores. That's like a two-part process with archetypes. That's really important, is to take the assessment and then personalize it through your own stories and evidence. Mm-hmm. And so they come to the creation of their unique profile. And, so that at the outcome, they have their Culture Talk profile, which Cynthia had been referencing, which is like this nuanced, very unique, almost like a thumbprint, because everybody's different. And, your hero might be supported by a jester, and my hero could be supported by a caregiver, and that makes all the difference in the world.
So do you have a debrief with the individual?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that happens in a number of different ways. So some people debrief one-on-one if they're in a coaching setting, conflict resolution setting. And we also have workshops where you can debrief a whole team of people together. And that's where you get a lot of this openness and vulnerability. It builds emotional intelligence.
It does. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So what is your feeling around DISC? We've all heard about DISC, and I'm sure you've taken it.
Sure.
Yeah. Why did you choose to go have your business focus on Culture Talk versus something like a DISC or Myers-Briggs or any of the other tools out there?
Yeah.
So we think that there's lots of assessment tools, and, people learn different things about themselves through different assessment tools. I think that Myers-Briggs and DISC have been out there for a while, and a lot of people have done them and have taken away like some ahas. What is different about archetype as a framework is it's really a whole person framework. So it's not just what is my communication style at work, and I'm not assigned a letter or a number, right? That I have to remember, that I have to like reference back. What does that even mean? I don't have to. And so what we find with archetypes is that people tap. So our brains are wired for story, right? Our hearts are wired for story. When I tell you my story, like I see you, it's a lens through which we see so many things. And because the way we do this work is allows people to show up not just in one type, but allows them to see kind of how they score, and then to Teresa, what Teresa said, sort of personalize it, right? Like, what are my 3 types and how do they come together in this nuanced way that is me? And so I think the difference of having story as a way of seeing oneself and defining oneself is very powerful, because it gives us words and images. It gives us ways to share with each other who we are on a deeper level. And we even have a number of partners, Tracy, who are certified in other different assessment tools that will say the archetypes sort of give they kind of they embody all those other different types. So if I was a D on the disc, it doesn't give me necessarily enough information in terms of how to use that to my strength or how to manage some of the challenges of that. But if I can see that I'm also high on a hero or a ruler archetype, I can start to play more to the strengths of a particular story pattern. It's a framework that has all these hooks that people can understand how they're showing up and landing on people.
Makes perfect sense. I know for me, the DISC it's a label, and I'm not big on labels. No one wants a label. Oh, I'm a D, I'm an I. And I also love, I would imagine that's the same with emotional intelligence and with Culture Talk, that what you're capturing is a snapshot in time. This is the person's benchmark. Is that true or no?
Yes.
Well, yes, and
yes,
yeah,
and. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we would say that your archetypes could evolve over time.
Okay.
You become conscious of kind of what your natural patterns are. You might.
And then I think to that point, we have a number of coaching tools that are designed to help you intentionally do that. Just like we talked about Turner evolving as a team, their culture, you can, as a human, make an intentional shift to the ways in which you're showing up.
Okay.
Coaching to help you do that. But we have natural tendencies, and the strong ones tend to stay strong for us. Yeah. But the coaching there is to help you to activate the strength side of that pattern and be aware of, and sort of downplay. I shouldn't say downplay, but not act from the shadow side of the pattern.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you. Yeah. I know there's some other comments in the chat, so I don't want to take all the time.
Yeah, well, I just want to land on that to say, so one thing we would say is it's not necessarily a moment in time. It's kind of like, who am I over the course of my lifetime, and how is that evolving, and how can I intentionally evolve that?
Philippa, yeah, why don't you just unmute and
yeah, share.
working on.
Sure, thanks, guys. Very interesting session. This is looking at culture talk from a different direction to where I normally look at culture talk. So very interesting. I'm working with an organisation at the moment who's just about to introduce performance development into the organisation, and they've asked me to help them put together a development program for their leadership team. I wouldn't call them leaders at the moment, they're more like managers, but to support them with implementing PD. Basically, they need some leadership development training, and we're going to leverage the performance development as a tool to hinge some training around. So my question was, do you see value in these leaders or managers completing the culture talk assessment first? And then if so, how do I leverage that to help put together the program? It may be a little bit too much detail for this call, but if you could just give me a little bit of an overview.
Yeah, it's a great question. And the answer is yes. We would recommend that at the start, you would have everybody on the team go through a culture talk assessment and a validation session where they're defining, based on the profile, they're defining within that their own, experience of that profile. What they will uncover in that process, and people seem to step just as easily into I'm good at as, oh yes, that kind of behavior hangs me up, right? Because I see strengths and shadows sort of as a continuum. So Philippa, in that, they're going to be able to identify, these are my strengths. This is what I contribute, what people count on me for, what I need to do more of, and I need to do at a higher level. They're going to identify the shadow tendencies of those same patterns. And they're going to go, oops, this is when I slip into this behavior, I'm no longer, being a leader. I'm in a reactive mode. I'm in a stressed mode. So some part of my performance development is going to be, how do I manage that? How do I catch myself, and how do I get out of the shadow faster? And then I'll give you four. A third aspect would be, I want to do this. I want to grow into doing this. So are there patterns that are not currently active that might be more latent in their profile where they might want specific steps to develop new strengths in a new area, in a new pattern? Mm-hmm. And then the final thought is, also our profiles are going to identify who are we working with? Who are we managing, and how do our profiles connect with each other? How do I begin to understand the people that I am managing, whether I'm managing up or managing down? How do our profiles interact with each other, and how do I make that more effective, those interpersonal opportunities?
Yeah, and that sort of goes back to the conversation we were having earlier about understanding, how do I maximize these relationships and avoid conflict? And, once it becomes part of the language and the vernacular that people are tossing back and forth on a regular basis, they become the, implementers of the thinking and the tools and the methodology. And we've seen that over and over again. Unlike, we had the conversation about DISC, we kind of drop those labels after a while and stop using them. But we see with the archetypes, and we have a number of tools to keep it alive, but people continue to reference those patterns and to deepen their understanding over time. As a matter of fact, back to the Turner story for just a second, we actually worked with them over the course of 2 years. And in the interim, in the setup for the second session, I had multiple calls with the leaders on the team to ask, so where are you with this? Like, tell me how it went for you, over the course of the past year. And a lot of the feedback was, I just keep thinking about it, and one person said to me, every morning on my drive to work, I sort of use it in my head. I think about it, and I think about, how can I use the strengths of my profile, and, how I'm seeing my team differently, and I'm applying this thinking even to people who haven't yet taken it, because I've learned and I can now see and my eyes are open. So it's that over time we see the work deepen, and so that's where it becomes such a growth opportunity. As opposed to, Sticky, right? I'm
Yeah,
gonna do-
it certainly lives and breathes with you, you know, and but in a very good way, very good way. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll be in touch. I'll have another conversation with you.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm going to do a quick screen share here just because Tracy, you had asked this earlier. So I'm just popping up here. This is an individual result. So this is an online interface. And this is somebody's profile. I won't share whose, but this is what somebody sees. So we're not just, you know, showing just what the top scores are, but you can kind of see here in this result, you know, clearly the hero is standing out, is the strongest pattern. And then there's some, you know, there's 4 of them here that are coming in pretty close. So a validation session would actually open the door to, we call it like trying on clothes. You know, how do you experience this pattern? Where you see it showing up? Do some of these resonate more strongly with you? And, you know, what are the stories that you have, whether they come from, and this is where people frequently will tap back into their childhood, their family life, all without prompting. I mean, it can be
formative, those formative experiences.
right. Yeah. And then they don't have to, they can keep it high level and stay in the work environments and validate as well. But they have, you know, the whole range of experiences they could use this, you know, to take a look at. So.
Philip is popping off.
Okay.
And cool.
All right.
So to those who jumped on Zoom, thank you.
Thank you. Right. Thank you. Thank you. We're so sorry for the technical challenges today.
Hello.
Maybe we need to invite somebody with technical skills to our call next week.
Next week.
That's right.
Yeah. And so just a reminder, if you want to learn more, you can take it. You can take one of those individual assessments, which will give you a feel for the tool set and the reports. Teresa's happy to hook up with you. She dropped her calendar link, and we'll also post this video to LinkedIn if you have other people that you want to introduce the work to or share it with. Yeah, we appreciate you jumping in. We're going to be back next week. We're going to be talking, we're actually going to have 2 of our Culture Talk partners from here in Denver, Colorado join us to talk about how they are activating Culture Talk profiles for communications and coaching. So how do they work one-on-one with individuals? And they've got a theater background, so it's pretty fun and interesting that they've put together. So we're excited to be joined by Articulate, Real, and Clear is the name of their company. And so come back, come join us, come bring your friends, and we're excited to share the work.
Yeah, and just a quick shout for the rest of the series. We are going to talk about brand and marketing on December 23rd. So hopefully you can put us on your calendar. Maybe you're doing some Christmas wrapping in the background, but we'd love to have you talk about brand and marketing with us. We'll be talking about management and strategy. And then in the new year, recruiting and onboarding and engaging and retaining. So we know these things are all top of mind in the crucible we're living right now. So we'll look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
See you soon. See you next week.
Thank you
Bye.
soon, Teresa.
I'll see you soon. Yes. Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.